welcome back. Again, my name is Troy Snyder, professional counselor and certified sex addiction specialist, here to help you walk through this 4 video and learning experience to help you start your journey into the healing process and the recovery process from sex addiction. So I'm just so grateful that you're here. I hope that the material that you have on your worksheets and that you will get in these videos can help you achieve your goal of sexual sobriety and living in holiness and serving and honoring God through this process. So today, what we're going to do is we're just going to start an intro on, what is sex addiction and what causes it. And I'm going to read a definition for you from an organization that I'm with that really kind of encapsulates what's going on here. So the way that we look at this is that sex addiction is a limited term. It's one that doesn't fully encapsulate the scope of the problem it's attempting to describe. While in many cases, classic pattern of addictions are present, such as the use of pornography or acting out in self-gratification or different things like that, in some cases, the behaviors associated with sexual addiction appear to stem more from trauma reenactment, neurological damage, and intimacy avoidance issues or mental health. And so while today most of the focus is on the behavior and the use of it, we want to take this to another level to help you what's going on underneath of the struggle itself. As I stated in the intro, some of my guys come in and I don't have to tell them what they're doing is wrong or sinful. Most of the time they walk in my door knowing I don't need to do this. Now, whether that was out of a personal conviction or being caught by somebody, they become aware that this is not good and this is not right. And they come in oftentimes saying, I want to change this, but I don't know how. And so that's what we're going to try to help think through here in these next series to just help you begin to move in that direction. So a couple things I want to discuss is, again, what is it? What's the journey? And how do we start to move through this process? Well, just like in the traditional 12-step model, the first step is I have a problem and I'm powerless over it. And my life has become unmanageable. And it's honesty and ownership of the problem. Now, that doesn't fix it, but that starts the process where I'm like, I have a problem and it's affecting me and everybody around me. And I have to be willing to be honest, but it's scary to be honest because of the shame and the fear that we have. And that's exactly where some of this issue gets its fuel, is based on that fear and shame that we have in our lives. And we have to begin to work through that. And so honesty is the foundational piece to starting this process. And it's honest about the problem that happens inside of me, right? Not just about the behavior, but about what's going on inside of me. Because scripture is very clear that sexual sin is the only sin you commit against your own body. It affects your body, and it almost kind of, we know neurologically, it kind of builds on itself, and you build tolerance, and your dopamine levels go up, and it feels like it's a runaway train for a lot of people. So we have to recognize that this is a problem. And we also have to recognize that it's a journey to heal from this. It's not a come in, get fixed, and move on. It's a come in and understand the issue and choose to disciple and discipline yourself to live a holy, faithful, sexually pure and sober life. That's kind of the goal. And how to then navigate temptations and how to deal with that. We don't think about not having any temptations. We just think about how are we going to navigate through those when they come in the future. And with this, you heard me mention at the very beginning, is that a potential trauma response. Now, most people, when they hear of trauma, they think of really, really bad things, like being sexually molested, and they are. and they think about maybe physical abuse. And those things are true. Those really affect our neurochemistry and our mind and our perceptions and our beliefs about God, about ourselves, about authority, about people in our lives. It really impacts our intimacy connection, right? We also have other types of abuse or trauma that fit this category. And one of the things I like to use with my clients is this little picture that kind of lays out, and I can put this in the document, but we have two types of trauma or abuse. We have invasive and neglect. And most people know what invasive abuse is. So invasive physical abuse is being physically hit and that kind of thing. But what is physical neglect, right? It's withholding of love and affection and maybe even some resources, right? So that's a neglect, and that's traumatic in and of itself. But most people focus on the invasive stuff. So you got physical, emotional, mental, sexual, spiritual, and cultural invasive abuse. And I have my guys kind of fill out this chart, kind of looking at their lives, and a lot of them are finding themselves in the neglect category. And so we start to explore that to go, how does that feelings of neglect, that trauma, how has that affected your view of self, your view of God, your view of authority, your view of people, your view of relationships? It has that impact on you. And the why this is so important is because the coping mechanism of sexually acting out is really trying to anesthetize or trying to satisfy that pain that's going on in there, in your heart, that's been there for some time. And it never does, because we know that once we go to act out, it does make us feel better for a moment, but it doesn't really last or satiate or fix the issue. So now I use the term, we go in with one problem, we come out with two. So one of the things in treatment is to start thinking about, what's my drivers? What's my motivators? What's my wounds that get me to go to this place, to really drives me to there? And what happens is these pains are so real and they're so in there that we are ashamed of them and we don't want to talk about them. That's what happened in Genesis, where Adam and Eve sinned. They covered themselves and they hid behind the bush, right? They didn't want to be seen. But God interrupts that shame cycle by being able to say and do something that's pretty radical and pretty powerful. He comes and looks for them. And he says, Adam, where are you? And he has a conversation with them. This is one of the classic ways that God is wanting to encourage us and educate us on how we deal with shame. It must be spoken of. We must be honest about where we are. We must have conversations to explore what's the driver there. And then he gives hope on how we can heal from our behaviors and actions, and get out of the shame cycle. Because if we think about what Adam and Eve would have done, if God wouldn't have come down, they would have just been living behind a bush, hidden for a long time, and it would not have turned out well. So I really want you to understand is that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that drive this sexual addiction or sexual compulsive behavior. And so what we want to do as you guys begin to work through this and reading some of the material and thinking through the scriptures and the Bible studies that are on your worksheet there, it will begin to help you understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I can tell you from my experience over the many years is that guys feel like they have a burden lifted off. They feel like the scales have come off their eyes and they're seeing hope, and they're seeing that it's not just about willpower, or it's not just about getting rid of everything in your life, although there's some value in those. But they see the freedom that happens there. And it gives them encouragement, instead of a legalism or a beatdown or just a behavioral modification. It gives them true freedom. So when you're reading through this, I want to hope that you will gain some encouragement and know that freedom is available and we can walk in it daily in our lives. It doesn't mean that we won't be tempted. It doesn't mean that we won't have struggles still. But we have the tools and we have the means to how to work through that. And I leave you with the memory verse that you're going to be looking at, which is Romans 5:8. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And sometimes you guys may feel right now like you're like, I'm just messed up. I'm messed up and I can't do anything. And you're right. While we were sinners, we're stuck. But Christ died for us. And with that, he's given us the freedom to rest in him, to trust in him, to lean upon him, to ask him to give us the insight and the strength to really work through these issues. So you're going to find that there needs to be an active faith clinging to Christ as we go through this process. So I encourage you to really think about those things. You will also begin to do an exercise and start to tell your story. This is for two reasons. One, for you to start getting honest. And two, for you to kind of see the story, see how it's laid out, see the things that impacted you, see the things that influenced you, see the bends or twists in the roads as you lived your life. We're not looking for blame shifting. We're just looking for how we were trained and how we understand what's going on. And so I hope and pray that as you start this process, which I'm again grateful that you're doing it, I pray that it will be freeing for you. Have a blessed day.